Hello, so this is a series of videos I'm going to do putting a guitar together. So putting together an acoustic guitar, this kind of thing. So you've got the whole lot, you've got the bridge, you've got the body of the guitar, bit of detailing, nice grain pattern in this one. All the dots, you've got the machine heads and a little inlays at the top, and do all of those things. So you have to do all of those. So hopefully it can end up with something quite nice. And the other thing is you don't need particularly expensive sets of tools. They're nice if you've got them, but you can get away with a lot of hand tools. In fact, this one was built with mostly hand tools, and I'll show you what tools to use in a second. But you can see you can get a reasonably good guitar with a fairly nice sort of sound. So let's get started. I'm aiming to do one of these videos once a week, and I'll release them at that sort of level. Hopefully I'll have something done between the times. I'm going to start off by looking at the tools that we're going to need. And as I said, you can get away with a lot of hand tools for this kind of thing. But first and foremost, something like this, a decent plane. You can't get away without one of these. Pay a reasonable, I think this one was about £50. But as long as it's set up nicely and you can keep it sharp, then that's going to be a real help. In fact, you can't do it without one of those. So there's the first thing. You can pick them up all over the place on eBay or local tool shop, whatever. So there's that one. Set of clamps, all different sorts of sizes. Can't have too many of these. These are really good. G clamps are much better than the ones that you grab, because they'll hold much more strongly. Obviously, a set of sharp chisels for trimming things off. Again, not particularly expensive. You will also need some measuring device, a set square essentially, so you can draw square lines, and then one of these where you can pivot it so you can draw lines at different angles. It's be useful when you're making the fretboard and that kind of thing. Also, a fret saw. So this is for cutting holes and cutting out the shapes. Now, fret saw, nice and cheap, reasonably easy to use. It takes a long time. You might, if you've got the money, get a band saw for doing a lot of these things instead. That's the cheapest one in the shop, band saw, but it makes a real difference, makes things much quicker. So you pay your money and you take your choice. Probably the most expensive bit, and I haven't figured out how to get around it, is one of these. So a Dremel. Other varieties are available. So it's one of these little hobby drill things. And the beauty of those is you can use it to do things like cutting out the hole in the guitar, the sound hole, and you can get these little attachments for it. So the Dremel goes in there, and then see there's a spike that goes into the wood, and you can then cut perfect circles, and that's really good when you're putting the inlay in around the outside of the sound hole, so you can cut out nice accurate certain depth, so you can pop in the sound hole decoration. So that's useful as well. One of the cheapest tools, this is a cabinet scraper. So if you haven't seen them before, it's kind of sharp along the top, and what you can do is scrape it along the wood to get a nice finish on things. And again, you have to keep these things quite sharp. I'll show you how to do that at some point. Other tools, obviously you're going to have a drill, some sort of drill for making holes. Most people have got one of those anyway. Some of the optional extras, this is a really useful tool. It measures the gap. So when I'm, I think this one needs oiling. This one, so when we're planing the wood down to get it to the right thickness, this is ideal. You can put it on the wood and it'll tell you how thick it is and how far you've got to go. You can make a wooden one of these as well, and I'll show you one of those later too. But that's fairly expensive, but quite useful. And that's pretty much most of the tools that we're going to need. The other thing I would recommend is a good plan. If you've never made one before, you're going to need something that really shows you what and where you're going to put things. And also, I would recommend this book. This is the book I used to build my first one. Jonathan Kincaid, I think is how you pronounce it. This is really good. Inside you've got all sorts of detailed photographs and things about how you build the guitar. It also comes with a plan. It's absolutely ideal for your first guitar. So yeah, definitely worth looking at those. And there's others available as well. If you look on the internet, there are a load of plans that you can get hold of. So as an example, I've got some plans back here I downloaded from the internet. The other thing, and this is what I'm doing for this particular guitar, I'm going to build, this is going to be an acoustic bass. It's exactly the same, it's just slightly bigger than an acoustic guitar that you might be building. And what I've done is download a photograph of one that I like the look of, and then I put it into a drawing package and squashed it around a little bit, and then I printed it out. And it's just printed out. Let's see if I can print it out on A4 sheets and sort of sellotape together, so that you can get a full-size plan, because what you need is the full-size printout so that you can draw your templates and things and get that right. And that's pretty much it. Other things that we're going to need on the way, we're going to need templates and things. We're going to need to make a mould for the guitar to form it in, and various other little bits and bobs and little jigs on the way, but we'll go through building those as we get to them. So that's pretty much it. So we'll go for the first step now, which is to make a template of the guitar. So we're going to need a firm table to work on as part of this. What I've got here is an old bit of kitchen worktop, and I've fixed a piece of wood onto the back of it so that I can then drop that into a workmate. I can do it with clamps, and I've got a nice solid flat smooth table. It's really important that it is flat. You don't want it warped or anything, otherwise the guitar is going to be a funny shape. So start off with one of these. And onto this to start with, I'll put my plan like this. There we go. And then I'm going to make a template of it. And in order to do that, I've got a bit of Perspex sheet. You can see that this is about 2mm. It's not particularly expensive. You can pick it up in hardware shops. And what I'm going to do is put that on, and I've drawn a centre line down the middle of the guitar because I only want to draw a template of half of it. So I can line up one of the straight edges of the centre line, save me cutting that, line it up here like that, and then what I'm going to do is take an indelible pen, a Sharpie or something. I'm going to draw very carefully around the outside. So I've lined up the Perspex as accurately as I can along this line. Just going to use a little bit of tape to stop it from moving again. Given a chance, these things always move right at the end. Okay, now this guitar that I'm building has got a cutout on one side. Now the side I'm going to make sure to do is the side without the cutout, because the other side will be symmetrical just with a chunk out, and we can do that separately. So we'll just make one template of the full side of the guitar. So take your pen, Sharpie, just check that it's working, and then just very, very carefully now I'm going to draw around the shape. Just take your time on this. Very carefully around. See, we're starting to get that shape now. Now that's done, I can take off the tape. And there we are, we've got the outline. So what I'm going to do next is cut out this shape on a bandsaw or a fret saw if you haven't got a bandsaw, and we'll have a template. You can see now the reason why that we use Perspex, because I can see through it. And as well later on when we're looking for wood, we can use the Perspex template to line up over the wood to find a nice grain pattern and that kind of thing. Now that we've roughly cut out the template, you can see I'm not quite onto the line. I've been a bit rough with the way I've cut it. This is where I can use one of these. This is a disc sander. Now if you haven't got a disc sander, you can just use a normal block and some sandpaper, some fairly rough sandpaper, and just bring that back down to the line. But I shall use this. So don't forget, if you're using this kind of thing, don't forget to use extraction. Okay, so I'll just clamp that onto there, and then I will bring this down. So sanded round the edges here, and you see they're quite nice, and the disc sander is brilliant for that. But you can see, I'll hold it up to the camera, these inside bits haven't worked very well because you can't get in there with a flat surface. And for that, a set of these are really good. You can pick these up for very cheaply from Screwfix or wherever your favourite hardware store is, and these just go into a drill. Ideally, if you've got a pillar drill, that's perfect for it. You just stick it in there. Alternatively, you might have to clamp a normal drill in the vise if you haven't got one. And what I've done, I made an extra little jig, the first of the many little jigs that you'll need. Drill the hole in it that this fits into, and when that goes into the drill, that'll fit just in the hole, so I can then run things like this up to it. I can just sand it. So the proper tool is a bobbin sander. I haven't got one of those. They're like hundreds of pounds. So this is the cheap alternative. As you'll see many of these sort of cheap alternatives as we go through this. So let's pop this in the drill and do some sanding. So here we are, the thing all set up. And you have to be really careful now. And as I take this down, be really careful and feel that line with your hand. Get it nice and smooth, because this is going to be the shape of the final guitar. So it's really important. Take a long time over this. Just get the smooth curves just right, and we'll get it right now. For this, dust extraction is a bit difficult, so wearing a mask. Okay. And then finally, I'm just going to finish it off with a little bit of, this is 400 sandpaper, just to sort of make the edges nice. So just go around there. Any of the little burrs that have been created by the sanding will come off. There we go. Make it all nice. And there we go. Give that a clean up, and there's one template. Now it doesn't matter if you've gone over the lines or under the lines. Really it doesn't matter the absolute shape. It doesn't be perfect, but you know, just a nice smooth shape is what we're looking for. Just a little bit there I might take off. And there you go, one template. There's the start of your guitar, and I'll see you next week.